Hello and welcome, Henning Pauli here. Welcome to the channel. Presonus has asked me if I could talk about all my Presonus mixes. And I said, gladly. I have bought most of them, not the new one that actually came from Presonus, so thank you for that. So this is a video where I get gear in trade, that's what we call that. But I gladly talk about the Presonus mixes that I use because I've been using these Studio Live things for years. Let me quickly roll back to 2008, I want to say. I produced the band, don't even know what they were called then, and then they were changing their name to Kronaspia, and also Campaign Like Clockwork. And I talked both bands into buying a Studio Live, which by then was about $2,000, for their practice rooms, for their rehearsal spaces, because it allowed them to make actually good mixes with compression, gating, effects, EQ. Record these digitally. Back then it was Firewire, they were Firewire mixes, Firewire connection to their computers and record all the individual tracks and listen back to what they were actually playing in the rehearsal. They could make little recordings. Each of them had their own in-ear mix with headphones. When they were then going to a gig, they took their mixer to the gig, changed the cables from the in-house mixer, and pretty much had a basic setup of their rehearsal sound, and it only had to be tweaked. Campaign Like Clockwork and Kronaspia, I both mixed as an engineer live, and I took a big piece of styrofoam, put it on the big mixer in the club, put the mixer down, and ran the whole show with that pretty much 19-inch wide almost mixer. And people frequently at these shows came up to me and said, this club never sounds that good. What are you doing? Well, first of all, I know what I'm doing. But secondly, gating toms on drums is a good idea, which the shit they had couldn't do. Compressing correctly on the tracks and so on and so on, adding the right effects, automating the effects by hand, when the vocalist was holding a big note and then going to the effects thing, pulling that up. I could do all that stuff with these Presonus mixers. And then when it came time to choose a mixer for Studio A, here in Studio C, we're going to go into Studio A in a bit, it was pretty clear that I was gonna go with the Studio Live. Now, even though Presonus is working with me on this video, not everything is gonna be, wine and roses. There are some issues that over the years they haven't addressed, and I'm gonna point these out. But I'll tell you why, for me, the Studio Live series is the way to go. So we're starting here in Studio C. And we had a Studio Live, I don't know, Series 2, Series 3, whatever, and happy with it. The older ones had some software issues. After firmware, it got better, firmware updates, and here everything is running really smoothly. What I really wanted, and I had a meeting with them at Sweetwater in the US, and I asked a couple of questions. What I really wanted here is the lady behind the camera, my lovely wife, Leslie, doesn't know shit. Is that correct? She's nodding, yeah. So telling her, here's Cubase, here's Logic, whatever, make a session, arm the tracks, that's too complicated. I needed a very simple recording solution to do, let's say, a maximum of 8 tracks while I do a video. Also be able to pump audio into the studio for me to hear a DI signal from a guitar or a backing track or whatever. The mixer needed to be able to do that. And the Studio Live series has onboard SD card recording. And that is relatively straightforward to do on the mixer. Go into the recording, give it a name, arm the tracks. Then she's asking, what are we recording? And I'm telling her the names, and she's hitting the right buttons. That's relatively easy. But even easier, I'm going to put the card back in there. I'm going to talk about the card in a second. A better way would be to use the USB, it's not Firewire anymore, USB recording to go to a computer. But of course that is, if you don't know tech stuff, that's a bit complicated. So I wanted an easy solution. And their solution is called Capture. So what you do here, you hit new session. Oh, it's not seeing the mixer. Oh, look. Yeah, it's super stable. I mean, that happens sometimes. And what do we do when that happens? Apparently the new one still isn't that stable. It's more stable now, they said. We pull the USB cable, we plug in the USB cable, and now we should be good. Just have to know to work around it. There you go. Studio Live SE16. So, new session. And then she gives it a name. Henning shows stuff, but misspelled, into this folder, bam. And now we have a very simple recording interface, right? It's not really a mixer, it is a recorder. So, what she then does is disarm all the channels. Click on this, ba-bang, and all the channels are gone. When you hit this button up here, it syncs with the mixer, and you can actually see MD4, 21, N22, all the names are exactly as they are on my mixer. And now we record. Those are the two guitar mics, that's the room mic, that's my speed shotgun mic. We're going to record the aux as well, and maybe an amp DI. I mean, that would be a complicated session. At the bottom here, we see the incoming levels. Of course, right now we don't have incoming levels. And then all she does is hit record. That's it. That is, after she asks me, hey, what channels to record, that's pretty straightforward, right? Then when you want to hit stop, you have to unlock it. You hit the unlock button, then hit stop. That's it. Save the session, get out of here. Now the cool thing is, if you were tracking music, you could actually hit this little D button up there, and it would actually play the session back through the channels on the mixer that they were recorded on. So you would actually be able to quickly set levels. It's a pretty quick send it back to the mixer on those tracks. Super easy, and we've been working like this in here for 3 years with I'm going to call it a person, who doesn't know shit about this stuff. And that was very important to me, to make that simple. Obviously, there is a lot of stuff that this is not a full review of the mixer. There is the control software, right? Universal Control. And you can go to the mixer. I never know what to click on to start here. And everything you want to do, you can do in software. Even if I move this fader here, if you look over there, faders move. So this is a full control. If you want to change names, don't do that on the mixer. You can go up here, change the name for each track, select a track. How do I select a track? Oh, down here. Change the name. And the most important thing, which you're going to see in a sec, is you can also back the whole thing up and bring it back if you get in a new mixer, which is relevant to today's video, and also back up scenes. So each scene you do can be backed up here. Everything can be governed from here. But I haven't really looked at that in a few years. I did that a couple years back. You can do that on a phone, you can do that on an iPad, and apparently you can do that remotely. You can, I haven't done that. You can be in, they said Barbados. I don't know if it counts for Aruba or the Dominican Republic, but they said definitely in Barbados. You could be sitting in Barbados on your iPad and almost real time mix a session that's happening here. Or at least, if Leslie had a problem with some settings, and I was in apparently only Barbados, that's called humor. I could get some levels for her, make sure it's not distorting. I could do some routing. That's all possible. And you can also, which we did for some live concerts in the Studio A, everyone in the in-ears could actually, through their phones, do their own levels. There's a lot these mixers can do, right? I don't need all that stuff. I need a simple USB connection that sometimes only works when you plug it in again. Call up, capture, and have Leslie hit record. That it does perfectly. All this remote control stuff I don't use because I'm the talent in the other room. But the most important thing for me is in-out flexibility. So let me show you some of that. We're gonna move this monitor around so you can look at it a little bit more. Now, trust me, I looked at other mixers through the years because some of this stuff really is bothering me that this thing doesn't do. But when I looked at the Behringer Wing, which is also a bit more expensive and bigger, and you can see real estate here is important, they offered to send the bigger version, and trust me, I really wanted that. But where's it going to go? I have no space. I also really don't need it. The Wing has 8 inputs. Everything else has to come in through network. That's a bit stupid. I have 16 inputs on the actual mixer right here. I have 10 outputs, analog, right here, going out to places. And that is really where, for me, this thing is amazing, the output routing matrix. You can see these mixes here. And they're labeled Marty, Office, ATEM, Studio. So let me explain what that does, because in this place, in our studio, I need that flexibility. So the Marty is actually going to an ATEM Studio converter. That's a little box, and you can't see it's back there, and that has 4 XLR inputs. It's converting that into a MADI signal, going out of a BNC connector into this video switcher. And that allows me to encode 4 separate audio signals onto the video file. I use it as a backup, so that should something fail with capture, or maybe the SD card recording. I mean, that would already be 2 places that have to fail, right? But should something fail, I can always go back to the ProRes video file and have these 4 individual tracks separate. Then, let's skip over Office. Actually, let's go to Office. These 4 Office mixes, here 11 is going to the Office, are actually going analog out into an XLR to network adapter, going through the attic into the Office, and then network to XLR adapter, and I can actually get analog signals from here into the Office on 4 individual channels. 4 when I would need that. But then we have these 2 ATEM tracks here, ATEM 9 and 10. You can see they're stereo, they're linked, which I did up here. And that is an analog out on 9 and 10 with XLR, going into the XLR input of the video switcher, giving me 2 extra individual tracks. And that brings my individual track count on the video file to 6, which is pretty good for most videos. And that's just a backup for me, but I like to have that backup. Then we have Studio. 1, 2, 3, 4 mixes. Right now, all we do is 1. And that is going to a floor monitor in the studio. So right now, we're actually sending the aux. It's a mono monitor, but still. We're sending the aux and the Mac there. So when Leslie does nothing, and I play through the aux and I turn the monitor on, I'm hearing something. So I could tell her, go to mix 11 or the studio mix, because I don't know that's mix 11, and give me more or less, whatever. So each of these 16 mono mixes or 8 stereo mixes has their full mix, including a master. So it's always important, trust me, I made that mistake many times, to also pull up the individual mixes master. Then we of course have the main mix, which is what she hears in here through these very nice IK multimedia speakers. So in terms of that routing, it's already pretty amazing. And that routing can happen analog out, which some is, and some digital out. It seems that the screen is more responsive than it used to be, because that screen was never that great. So let me see if it actually responds quicker. Oh, it is responding quicker. They did do a better screen, because that was never very responsive. But now, ooh, nice. They also made new knobs. They feel different now. I mean, most improvements on the new series are reliability, visuals. The knobs are, the faders are nicer. The labeling on the buttons is smaller. Now the whole thing is black. Okay, let's go back to the routing. That is very important, and that studio routing is going through the network. Same as if you look at what's coming in. So here is my input source. So channel 1 is coming in through the network because that's coming from the other studio. As is channel 2, 3, They're all coming actually right now from the network, except for the Mac, which is coming in analog. But the nice thing is, I could also have something coming in from USB. So it would come from the computer. I could have something coming directly from the SD card, right? So I could play something from the SD card on a certain channel. And if I'm right here on my channels 1, 2, 3, 4, which are my 4 guitar mics, they're all coming in through the network. But let's say I don't want that. Look at this. I've got down here 4 wireless Sennheiser systems. All I got to do is open this up. There are the lavs, or even handhelds. Turn it on, and then it comes in analog out of these into the mix, and I made myself a little label here, Sennheiser 1 through 4. And to get to that, all I'd have to do is switch that to analog. Analog, analog, done. Now, these 4 are not coming from the other studio anymore. They're coming from what I have plugged in directly here. That gives me super easy flexibility. I like workflow. I like to be able to quickly change setups without pulling cables. And by being able to have 16 channels plugged in here, 10 channels output plugged in here, plus the network boxes, the NSB, you have an 8, you have a 16.8, and even a 32.16, I think, is why I love these things. So what I don't like about them is the touchscreen isn't that responsive, but actually it is a lot more responsive, so the new series is greatly improved. And I'll show you this live recording edit. Here is the recording setup for the SD card recording. And they have to have HC cards, maximum 32 gig. They're older cards, slower cards. Why not go to the modern SD cards? That bugs me. And also, there is no way to actually format this card, which needs to be FAT32 formatted, which is even difficult to do on my Mac without a special formatting tool. Now let's assume you're at a gig and you realize, oh my God, I don't have enough space on my card. You fucked. First of all, getting an HC card at any local shop is going to be difficult because they're more rare now. And secondly, formatting it, you'll need a computer that can format it in FAT32. Do you have that at the gig? Well, my Mac couldn't do it. Maybe someone's got a PC laptop with them. I feel that they still haven't remedied that. Now for me, of course, I have loads of spare cards. I even have brand new cards in boxes just in case. But in case you don't, you're screwed. So that's the one thing that really bugs me. But knowing that, I can have spare cards with me all the time. The routing is, for me, unique. Do I know all mixers on the market? No. Are there Allen and Heaths that are good and whatever, and SSLs? Of course. In this price range with 16 individual mono outs, I haven't found one. I love it for that. Okay, let me quickly give you a time lapse of exchanging the old one for the new one. Cabling and also the software. I backed it up in the software, put this one here, put the backup back on, needed to install the newest versions of Capture and Presonus Studio Live Control, because then it was recognizing the mixer, but of course, having the latest software is necessary.
There's a puzzle in my mind, and I like the final piece, lost it on the way, a price I have to pay. Gotta read between the lines, there is no rest and no release till I solve the case. Gotta save my face. I'm the leader of the blind, got my heart upon my
I think it took all of like 35 minutes, and the new mixer was exactly like the old one. Had to make some labels.
Take me now, our time is now. The hunt is down, don't care. Take me now, time is now. The hunt is down, don't care. 'Cause tonight we belong. Now we live, not just survive. Drinking time, talking so.
And now I have the old version as a floater when I go to events, do videos somewhere. Here's a picture, by the way, of me being at Ibanez last year doing the new guitar videos with a lot of YouTubers, and I took the smaller one, the 16.0.2, there as my mixer, which you're going to see in a bit in Studio B. So I trust these things. I know that there's some issues. I know that there was an issue with the previous firmware, which I still have installed in Studio A, of the network box after 2 or 3 days of being continuously on, which you rarely have, just failing. And at this point, they don't do that anymore, but mine isn't updated, so that's my fault. I have a little remote to turn it on and off, but if I crawled behind the desk, I could update it and we'd be good. Let me show you in here how that network box looks, how it looks, what it looks like. So here we're in Studio C. I should have asked them to send the rack mountable one. That would have been pretty smart here. But there is the NSB 16.8. And you can see on the red lights what has phantom power. And there are all the mics and the DI. At the bottom row, that goes to that RCF monitor over there, which will give me sound in the room. But of course, I could route anything anywhere. There's 8 outs in 16 ins. So now we are going to Studio A, and I'll show you, because you know, words are fine, but I mean, I could say I use them everywhere. I actually use them everywhere. So let's go over there. Okay, now we're in the control room of Studio A. Over here is the video system. It's off right now because obviously we're using this camera. And this is where Leslie sits when we work in the main studio. And here is a Studio Live 16. I don't even know. I think this is probably 2 or 3 generations ago. Probably 3 generations ago. I must have bought this 6 or 7 years ago. And it's still going strong, still working. Interestingly, the mixer that Campaign Like Clockwork bought in 2008 is now in a club about 3 kilometers from here. And they bought it from the band, and it's in use, it's still working, and that's 18 years later. 17, something like that. 17 years later. So some people are always worried about the digital stuff. Well, 17 years later, and the thing is working and doing a good job for the band that's rehearsing there. So here we have really the same idea. I don't really need a lot of outboard routing here. But this also, same thing, has the SD card recording if I need it. I don't really have the biggest capability of routing individual stuff from the studio here. But what we do here is, in the studio, since I sit there, I run Cubase for the recordings. This is more for monitoring, backup. And at the moment, you can see there's really a stereo channel coming in from the studio. And that is taking in the main signal. But for example, we did drum recording upstairs, 1 level upstairs, and there was an NSB 16.8 there. While I was in the studio doing video, it was a drum programming course with Felix. We had the full drum kit. that was all going into the 16.8 downstairs in here, and all the recording for the whole course was done on the mixer. There are many reasons why these things just help in many situations. This is what we did the live gigs with, where people actually did their own in-ear monitoring, and they were down there. I'll show you quickly where the NSB is in that room. What we also use it for is talkback. So when Leslie talks back to me in usually, mean ways, that happens through the NSB 16.8. What does it say?
It says orange, hold for TB.
Is that tuberculosis?
No, that would be TBC.
It's a little bit overkill to have a 16.8 for one channel, but that's what we're doing in here, which is way back there, behind the racks, under the Mac, and that's going to this little baritone that's sitting on the table there. So this is where I hear Leslie, through that little speaker. Obviously, we could do a lot more with it if I just wanted to. If I had the need, can pull that out, first of all do a firmware update, and then do other stuff with it. But at the moment, the way we're using it is talk back into this room and getting the audio from here in there, so it is in the video system as a reference. Let's go to Studio B, where I still have, I have a spare big one now, but where I have the little 16.0.2, which is not automated, it doesn't have flying faders, but it does have USB recording. It's a smaller, simpler version of the whole thing, and I'll show you that control room. And here we are in the control room of Studio B. Let me quickly show you Studio B if you've never seen it. This is what it looks like when we're not necessarily using it, cameras. That's why my Canons are. They need to go back. And then amps and all that stuff, to video studio for guitar-related shenanigans. So in here, we have, again, the video system with the recorder. We have a backup recorder, which is loud as fuck because Blackmagic never used good fans. And what we did with this, which is also the one that I had at Ibanez, is usually route 4 channels out of the 4 auxes, it's only 4 here, into this F6 from Zoom. But it was a cumbersome workflow, naming things, whatever. So what we did this year is, I have this hub here, everything is connected to the hub, put a MacBook here, put a hard drive on here, plug this into the MacBook, and use the capture software from Presonus, just like in Studio C, but with this. And that allowed the team in here, which was Victor, Krina, Jens, and Adam, to literally record any of the 16 channels if they wanted to, have a lot more flexibility. Now, this does not have network capability, and we're going in analog with a stage box in the studio. Pretty, old school 6-channel stage box, but we got actually 4 more cables running. So this allowed the team to record anything they wanted to, plug in a cable, bam, go USB out through the hub into the Mac and record. So even the 990 euro one, even though it doesn't have flying faders and is a little bit more simple, can actually do pretty good jobs for either your content creator station or even for a gig. Of course, flying faders are nice, but you have a filter, a gate, a compressor, a limiter, a full EQ for each channel, and effects. You've got 4 auxes. All that is here. I know, like many other digital mixers. For me, there is, with all of them, of course, a learning curve, but once you get through that learning curve, they deliver. I trust the Presonus Studio Live series. I've been trusting the Presonus Studio Live series since, I want to say 2008, around that, maybe 2007, something like that. And that's a long time. And in my studios, with everything that's on the market, I have not found anything else that gives me what they give me at that price point and at that size point. That is absolutely what I think. That is my honest opinion. Make of that as you will. I'm very happy that Presonus saw these in my studios and said, hey, you got these, want to talk about them? Yep, absolutely. So if that tells you anything, go right ahead, do more research. I didn't show you anything of how the compressors work. This wasn't the review. This is why I use this Studio Live series. And I'm so happy that Presonus is on my friends list now. Maybe we'll go out, have a coffee. Hey, Ollie. Ollie's the guy. That being said, I'll put some links below and animals at the end.
Coalition, another strong man. This story ended before it began. I should have seen this coming from the start. So many forces tearing us apart.